This is the new Fuji X-E5. I usually carry my X100VI with me anywhere I go. But for the past month or so, I've replaced my beloved number 6 with this, especially since Fujifilm also paired it with the new 23mm lens that actually feels like something new and exciting. And because of that, I have some thoughts. This video isn't really a review or anything, and this isn't really a comparison either. This is more about how it feels to replace a camera you trust with something that basically does everything the same and even more, but still feels familiar and brand new at the same time. How I see the X-E5. It is basically an X100VI, but with interchangeable lenses. So yeah, done deal, right? Well, hold your horses or whatever these youngsters say nowadays. Even though this one is kind of brand new, and you can argue that at least on paper it should be an easy fight, I honestly think that with the 23mm f2.8 lens, they both still live in the same universe. The X100VI is just ridiculously good. You just pick it up, you don't think, you just shoot. And I think that's actually its biggest strength. But when it comes to the X-E5, this one is dangerous. Because at least in my mind, it pretends to be a fixed lens camera, but it's actually a system camera in disguise. Today it's a 23mm, but tomorrow it might be a 30mm macro, or even a 56mm portrait lens. Or it could be paired with something weird and vintage. And that, of course, changes how you shoot. With this camera, I did find myself thinking, should I change the lens? Is this the correct glass for this shot? Could I get even more out of this scene? As you probably already guessed where I'm heading with this, it can be both a blessing and a curse. Well, calling it a curse does sound a little bit like overkill. But it is true that since you don't even have to think about that when you're shooting with the X100VI, you can do just that, shoot. You can just commit, and that's a massive psychological difference. Even though in my mind I'm constantly trying to compare the X-E5 to the X100VI, well, maybe I shouldn't. In fact, after using this camera for a while, I started to realize that maybe the psychological aspect is actually the biggest and greatest difference between these two. And that's what actually separates them enough for them both to happily coexist in this street photography bubble. Or am I just trying to convince myself why I shouldn't swap my own X100VI to this combo? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that battle in my head is what makes this camera so interesting and fresh to me. So what about the new 23mm f2.8 lens? Well, I like it a lot. I'm pretty positive this 23mm is equivalent to a 35mm on a full-frame sensor, so it is a pretty classic focal length, and for good reason. I love how compact this thing is, but I do wish the aperture would go all the way to 2.0 or even 1.4. That would be just magical. And on top of that, when you actually do switch out from that X100VI fixed lens mentality, you do start to wish even more from the lenses. And speaking of lenses, I also got to try out this new 30mm f2.8 macro. I usually don't really utilize macro lenses outside of when I'm scanning my film photos, but I do like challenges and new perspectives. And I have to say, the photos I got out of this lens are super sharp. There is one thing I would like to complain about regarding the X-E5 though, and that is the lack of proper weather sealing. Don't get me wrong, I have basically drowned my other Fuji cameras as well and never had any issues, but still, for the price I wish they could provide at least some sort of weather sealing out of the box. But still, it's not a major complaint. I just thought it would be worth mentioning. This thick and wet mist just drenched the camera, and the X-E5 didn't mind at all. So, do I have any final thoughts on the X-E5? Well, nothing I haven't already mentioned, I guess. It is a super nice premium camera, and if you are pondering between it and the X100VI, it really comes down to whether you have a need to swap lenses or not. I don't currently own this camera, but I do think it would fit my camera bag quite nicely, so maybe I just need to pull the trigger. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this type of content, let me know by subscribing, and see you next time.